Every gilded cage is built with walls of comfort. The only question is what you're paying for them.
All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to map out a really complex and, frankly, pretty challenging worldview. It's pulled together from a whole range of different sources. Now, our goal here isn't to say this is true or false. It's simply to lay out the blueprint they describe, an architecture of control that they say spans from the cosmic all the way down to the digital world we live in today.
So here's how we're going to break this down. Think of it like a pyramid. We're going to start at the very top, at the unseen apex, and then work our way down through all the different layers, the spiritual, the financial, the psychological, exactly as the source material lays it all out.
Okay, so we're starting at the absolute highest level of this theoretical pyramid. This is a spiritual dimension where, according to these narratives, the fundamental rules of our reality were first written, where the whole game was set up.
This quote, it just flips the entire story of Eden completely on its head, doesn't it? It reframes that central conflict. It's not about good versus evil anymore. In this view, it's a battle between liberating knowledge, what they call Gnosis, and a creator God who wants to keep humanity in the dark to limit our potential.
Now, to really get this worldview, you have to understand this one key term, the Demiurge. The sources describe this being not as, the ultimate God, but as a lesser, flawed creator who actually built our material world as a system of control, basically a cosmic trap for the human soul. A prison planet, as they call it.
So where do these ancient ideas connect to more modern times? Well, the sources point directly to this woman, Helena Blavatsky, and her Theosophical Society. They see her as the key bridge, the one who revived this so-called ancient wisdom, and provocatively reframed Lucifer, not as an evil figure, but as a symbol of rebellion against that limiting demiurge.
Another huge symbol in this worldview is Saturn, often represented by the black cube. According to these sources, this is way more than just ancient symbolism. They see it as a kind of cosmic operating system for limitation. And its influence, they claim, is encoded into everything from religious rituals to an actual cosmic frequency that's meant to keep humanity stuck in a loop.
So if that's the cosmic blueprint, how does it actually play out here on Earth? Well, the next layer of this pyramid looks at the human agents and the institutions that allegedly took these esoteric ideas and built very real, very tangible systems of power.
This timeline, it lays out a really critical story from these sources. It starts with the founding of the Illuminati, right? Then it links their grand ambitions to the incredible financial power of the Rothschild dynasty, and it all culminates in this secret meeting on Jekyll Island, where they allegedly designed the U.S. Federal Reserve, locking in private control over the nation's entire money supply.
And the sources use quotes just like this one, from a very influential Freemason, Albert Pike, to make a really specific point. They argue that these secret societies are not just social clubs, They are religious institutions, and it's their spiritual doctrine that drives their worldly ambitions.
Now, the story doesn't stop in the 1800s. It continues with figures like Alice Bailey, a prominent theosophist who, according to the narrative, basically updated the Illuminati's mission for the 20th century. Her writings about a hidden hierarchy of spiritual masters, the Great White Brotherhood, are seen as the public-facing part of a long-term plan to steer humanity into a new spiritual age.
Okay, so you've got the philosophy, you've got the financial control. What's next? You need the machinery to actually run the world. And that's what this next layer is all about, the international organizations that are said to manage and execute this global agenda.
I think this slide perfectly illustrates a central theme here, this huge gap between what we're told and what's allegedly happening behind the curtain. Take the Bilderberg Group. Officially, it's just a forum for discussion. But the sources claim all that secrecy is just a cover for its real purpose, being a central planning committee for the global elite.
And of course, if you want to control the world, you have to control the narrative. That's non-negotiable. This chart visualizes the claim that a tiny handful of corporations, allegedly owned by those same banking interests we saw earlier, completely dominate the flow of information, making sure the public conversation always stays within certain boundaries.
And this is where it gets really personal. We're moving down to an even deeper level of control. We're going beyond institutions and into the individual human mind. The goal here is to shape how we think, what we believe, and how we act directly.
So how do you do that? How do you actually change the way an entire society sees reality? The sources are obsessed with this question. And one of the most cited answers comes from a guy who wasn't a philosopher, but a Cold War intelligence operative who claimed he knew the playbook inside and out.
Former KGB defector Yuri Bezmenov, he laid out this four-stage process. He described it as a long-term strategy of psychological warfare. It's designed to slowly, methodically, erode a nation's values and institutions until a major crisis hits. Then, in the chaos, a complete takeover is possible, a process he chillingly called normalization.
And the sources also connect the dots between historical programs and more modern ones. They present the CIA's infamous MK-Ultra mind control experiments from the Cold War and the post-9/11 enhanced interrogation techniques, not as two separate things, but as one continuous, evolving research project into how to break the human will.
And that brings us to the base of the pyramid. Right here, right now. The present day. This is where technology is allegedly being used to perfect and automate every single one of the previous layers of control we've just talked about.
A huge piece of this technological future is the Central Bank Digital Currency, or CBDC. The sources warn that this is not just a digital version of cash. No way. Because it's programmable, it could theoretically be coded to stop you from making certain purchases, or even be tied to some kind of social credit score. It's an unprecedented mechanism for control.
And AI, well, according to this worldview, AI is the engine that could automate this entire system. The theory is that it can scale manipulation down to an intensely personal level, exploiting our own individual biases, creating addictive dopamine loops to guide our behavior, all in service of what the sources call a technological hive mind.
So in the end, this entire massive architecture of control, it's all said to lead to one final choice. The sources frame our future not as a political struggle, but as a spiritual one. It's the choice on the screen, a forced merger with technology, a technological hive mind, or a personal, spiritual awakening they call Gnostic liberation. That's the core question this whole blueprint leaves us with. Thanks for joining me on this one.